Top 3 quarterback prospects for the NFL draft for 2026. It is incredible how things can change on a year-to-year basis with football. 2026 was once heralded as a class that should have yielded multiple top quarterback prospects, and now we are staring down a list of prospects and trying to figure out what on earth are NFL teams going to do who were counting on having a quarterback of the future available in this draft, and now they have to pivot because their dream quarterback either refused to enter the draft or just flopped on the season as a whole. So now that the college football season is officially over, let's break down the top quarterback prospects for the 2026 NFL draft. How are they going to change fantasy football and potential landing spots? Fernando Mendoza, no surprises here. I mean, a few weeks ago, this was going to be a debate between him and Dante Moore. We thought this was going to be a battle of who will be the first overall pick. I was fully prepared for fun debates and tracking all the insider information and tips regarding which team preferred which quarterback, what all the feedback was going to be. But that was unfortunately before Dante Moore got dragged in a game where Fernando Mendoza looked like the second coming of Peyton Manning. So now Moore is returning for another year of college. And Fernando Mendoza is the clear number one prospect of the NFL draft, and the odds of someone overtaking him are very slim at this point. Yes, it is absolutely possible and probably going to happen that there are going to be guys that increase their draft grades as we go throughout this process this offseason. But after we have had multiple failed or near failing developmental quarterbacks taken with high picks in recent years, Mendoza's place at the top here is very safe. It's not going to change. He is the safe, can't miss pick here. It doesn't get much lower risk than Mendoza. He is what you would describe as a high floor quarterback. We've had a ton of debates this season in terms of the development of quarterbacks in the NFL and wondering if it's an issue at the college level or if the NFL is failing these young quarterbacks with poor coaching and bad systems. Well, with Fernando Mendoza, solves that issue, right? Because he arrives with an NFL-ready arsenal of qualities that require less development. He has an incredibly high football IQ. He operates like an NFL veteran, quick processing before and after the snap, zero issue going through his reads. He understands defenses. He'll transition very well into the NFL, and he will be ready to be a day one starter. He wins with processing, accuracy, and calm command of the offense, and he consistently puts the ball where it needs to be. He's not perfect, right? He lacks arm strength, but his decision-making and anticipation mitigates any of those limitations. Now, again, he's not perfect. He does have weaknesses. The lack of a cannon arm is one of those things that takes him away from being one of those super high ceiling kind of guys. And the fact that while he's not a statue, he does need to be behind a solid offensive line. But as we continue to see, this is my opinion, right? As we continue to see a wide variety of quarterbacks who are definitely mobile struggle behind bad lines, honestly, the fact that he needs a good offensive line is not a concern for me. Everybody needs a good offensive line to be the best versions of themselves, so I'm not going to knock a prospect for that. A common comp for Mendoza, potentially a higher end version of Jared Goff. Honestly, you could do a lot worse for comparisons there. Now, in terms of landing spots, again, zero surprises here. Fernando Mendoza, you are a Las Vegas Raider. Congratulations. But you know what, guys? Give credit where credit is due. The Raiders bent over backwards to get this pick. And they pissed off Max Crosby in the process to ensure that they would have the first overall pick. It was a little bit controversial, right? Because you knew that they were trying to lose. And Max obviously was not very happy, but it paid off. They got exactly what they wanted, and now they don't have to deal with the drama of quarterbacks returning and concerns about whether or not you get the quarterback that you want. They got what they want, right? They are guaranteed to get a franchise-changing quarterback for their franchise. Who can not just change in terms of results on the field, but can also change the culture of a team, right? So if you follow me on other platforms, I've talked about this. I don't hate the Raiders as a landing spot. I understand organizationally there's a lot of skepticism, right? While it would be awful to put Mendoza behind this year's line and just really unfair to literally anybody, I don't think that's going to happen. As we've seen with Chicago, when you have money to burn, it is not that hard to buy an offensive line. It's hard to buy a quarterback, right? That's why you got to draft them. But it's not that hard to buy an offensive line. The Raiders have serious money to burn. They know they have the first overall pick. They know they will have their new quarterback. Logically, they should focus free agency on investing in the offensive line. Logically. Sometimes logic does escape the Raiders, but I'm trusting new management to make the logical choice here. Now, for Mendoza's impact on the Raiders' existing talent, this will be excellent for Brock Bowers. Mendoza's short and intermediate accuracy would mesh very well with him. They can continue on. Obviously, they need to add a receiver, right? Maybe two. But they can continue on with Brock Bowers as the first look if conceptually that's the direction that they want to go with the offense. And again, he will mesh very well with Fernando Mendoza. I would also expect Ashton Genty to benefit as well, not just from stability at quarterback, but also as a receiver. Overall, we will see a big day one impact from Mendoza and a definite boost to our fantasy players. I am very excited to see what he brings to the NFL. Now, our number 2 prospect, it was Dante Moore, but he's not there anymore. So, Ty Simpson, you're on the clock. Ty Simpson, to his credit, did have a potential first round grade before Dante Moore decided to rescind and go back to college. But more of a late round grade there for Simpson. Now, he could definitely see some upward movement here. That is very realistic. He can definitely build his profile in the draft process here. Upward to the point where I think that the Jets would take him second overall. Not so sure about that. We'll see. But let's talk through it. Obviously, Alabama quarterbacks are met with a lot of skepticism. Simpson is a rhythm passer with enough arm talent and athleticism to justify a first-round pick, right? As we've seen before, if you have the qualities, people will take the risk there with the first-round pick. He does not have Mendoza's size in terms of height and whatnot. He will definitely be, though, within the realm of a solid physical, solid physical aspects of a solid NFL quarterback. So there's no issue there. And he's got more than enough mobility that he could be one of those guys that gets sneaky rushing upside, which for our fantasy purposes, that's what we love. That's what we need. We need those guys who are good pocket passers, but can also scoot on the ground, right? But we can very easily identify why he cannot be in a tier directly with Mendoza. Consistency issues and struggles under pressure. If we watch you fail under pressure in college, you more than likely are going to face the same issues in the NFL. And with that struggle under pressure comes volatility, and that volatility has breakdowns in mechanics, and we know how that goes, unfortunately. So he is less foolproof than Mendoza and more of a coach-up opportunity to get to his true ceiling, which might be like a Derek Carr. That's not bad. That's not a bad ceiling, right? But now from a fantasy perspective, so fantasy landing spots. Now this is where it is fun with Ty Simpson because we can't debate that with Fernando Mendoza, but we can debate that here with Ty Simpson. Because again, suddenly he is extremely coveted. People need these quarterbacks, and he is the only one that has consistently had a true first round grade. And again, we're expecting this to be 1 and 2 here. Now Simpson has the opportunity to push his way up. We've got a wide variety of teams that need quarterbacks outside of Vegas. There's Miami, Arizona, the New York Jets, Indianapolis, Pittsburgh, Cleveland. And I do think that we can nix 2 of those teams out, Indianapolis and Cleveland. Riley Leonard did show promise. I'm not saying he's anything special, but he did show promise. And they have said that they are very interested in retaining Daniel Jones. Plus, they have Anthony Richardson on roster for now. Cleveland would likely look a little bit sloppy, dipping back into rookie quarterback prospects here. And it sounds like they want to bring in a veteran quarterback for competition for Shedeur Sanders. So here's the problem with the other landing spots. And so we kind of weed through them even more. The Jets in Arizona have the 2nd and 3rd pick. And that seems like a little rich for Sampson, even if he does push his prospects up a little bit. Seems like a little bit much. Logically, these 2 teams would trade back and draft him later or trade up from their 2nd round pick, which is exactly what we saw with Jackson Dart last season. So that means that we've got a wide variety of locations that are on the table here. Now, no offense to Aaron Glenn, but I've got very little faith that the New York Jets is the place to develop a quarterback. Arizona is really interesting, though, because you can argue that this group was held back by Kyler Murray and coaching. The line isn't bad. You've got ample weapons. You got plenty of weapons there. They've got a nice bridge quarterback in Jacoby Brissett. Makes a ton of sense. Miami would be another location, very interesting to us from a fantasy perspective because tons of weapons there. But because of their ties to Tua financially drafting a quarterback, that is definitely the better route for them. So they're very much realistically within the realm of possibility of a team that could make that investment into a guy like Ty Simpson. Then teams, again, like Cleveland and Pittsburgh, they're more justified in signing a veteran quarterback and then pushing their rookie quarterback to day 2 or even to 2027, right? And just kind of giving it a go and trying to figure out how to work things out. So when we're looking at landing spots here, it's tough to say what the true fantasy upside is because we've still got to figure out exactly where he goes. And there's a legit 6 teams and maybe even some dark horse teams that could slip in there and want him as well here. So it's going to be really interesting. He'll be the fun part of the draft process because we're going to get to debate in terms of realistically him being able to land anywhere. Now on to the tough part. Who is actually the QB3 in this class? QBs returning to school this season really messed us up here. There were some promising options, interesting developmental talents, but they all want to stay in school and develop. And, college NIL is very appealing. I get it. Trinidad Chambliss is literally suing the NCAA for another year of eligibility. If they refuse, given the level of development that he showed this season and the propensity to be a winner, yeah, I could easily see him shooting up to the 3rd prospect off the board here, very realistically. But of the guys that we actually have in the draft right now, technically speaking, Carson Beck could be next in line. I have a hard time believing that he's the one. Then there's Drew Allar, once expected to be a highly coveted round 1 pick. Again, how things change over the course of a year or two. He is built like a prototype. Can he behave like a prototype in terms of his actual skill set in the NFL? That one's a little shaky. Then there is Grant Nussmeier, once thought to have a very high ceiling, but bombed this year. He got big arm talent, and that always makes quarterbacks shoot up draft boards, right? And teams fall in love with them. But he is a pocket passer with an extremely questionable decision-making process, and it does help him that his dad works in the NFL, so we're going to get the good old benefit of nepotism there. But for our purposes, I don't really want to talk about those guys until I am 100% certain that Trinidad is not going to be in the draft here. For right now, I am going to talk about Trinidad, and if he does end up being able to beat the NCAA and go back to school here, just save this draft profile for next season here. So looking at these 3 quarterbacks, Fernando Mendoza is solid, immediate starter, no concerns about him being a project, right? Simpson, a tier down with plenty of NFL traits, some concerns about erratic play that push him below Mendoza. Then Trinidad Chambliss, definitely the high-risk prospect due to his limited D1 experience and not prototypical build. Now, Trinidad is extremely talented. That is not a question here. Arm strength, deep ball accuracy, mobility, processing on the run, clear poise, leadership. He's got all of that, right? But lack of experience at a D1 level is a major concern. That likely means that he would not be a day 1 starter. It would need to take more of the developmental route, being bridged by a strong NFL veteran quarterback and sitting under a strong offensive-minded head coach. From a fantasy perspective, you guys know this is the kind of player that we love. This is the kind of player that would put up points regardless of the record. But again, we want him in the right system, right? Like, think of Malik Willis. Not saying that that's the comp here, but conceptually, a guy that got a lot of draft hype. The hype didn't really push his stock through to the level that we thought it would. But again, he, landed with the potential of maybe being able to compete for a starting quarterback role. Landed with a terrible team, though. A team that cannot develop quarterbacks, clearly. A team that looked objectively awful. And went to a team after that can clearly coach up a quarterback in Green Bay. And suddenly the man is the hottest veteran quarterback on the market. Who would have thought, right? Incredible how that works. That quarterbacks that need development actually need to be on teams that can develop a quarterback. Wild. Who would have thought, right? So realistically, when we're talking about landing spots for him, we need to see how these coaches shake out to find a good landing spot for Trinidad, because I think the talent is there. But the coach has to be there too. He would not be the first quarterback to progress from literally 0 draft stock to an incredible season run and push himself into big conversations. That happens, and occasionally it does work, and then occasionally it does not, right? But then again, That's probably why he wants another year at Ole Miss. He's probably thinking ahead here, right? I have seen a wide variety of comps, and I think basically it's how you view him personally, as crazy as that sounds. I've seen comps of Kyler Murray due to obviously size and mobility, but obviously Trinidad's height is not the same as Kyler Murray, and Kyler Murray is definitely more stocky, so the build is not the same. Mobility I get for sure, but play style for sure, but definitely not the build. Spencer Rattler. I feel like that comp is a bit disrespectful. I don't like that one. Michael Penix, that one's a weird one that doesn't really make sense to me. I guess theoretically in terms of development, right? But Penix is more reliant on being inside the pocket. So that quality perspective doesn't make a lot of sense in comps. Russell Wilson is one that I have seen, and that is a high ceiling comp, right? Like best case scenario, Russell Wilson. That one at least does make sense to me in terms of capabilities. But all of these comps, what you can expect from a fantasy football perspective kind of shows, right? Except for the Michael Penix one. It shows us that everyone believes this is a guy who can absolutely rack up points as a starter because of his added value on the ground. So this is going to be a fun one. Obviously, we got to see how this plays out here. But if he enters the draft, since we do have a lack of high upside guys, he will get a ton of serious looks here. That wraps things up. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. You can find me across all social media platforms at It's Tara Time, so make sure that you are locked in, subscribe, turn on notifications. This is the first of many videos to come as we begin the draft process here. Stick around. It is going to be so much fun, guys.